Joining us now, Noah Bookbinder, president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Noah's organization represented the voters seeking to disqualify Donald Trump in Colorado. Welcome, Noah. So look, this was not a unanimous ruling. It came down 4-3. These were also all Democrat-appointed judges. So does that concern you as it heads to the Republican majority Supreme Court?
I mean, look, this is a difficult thing for any court to do. This is the first time that we've ever had a former president and a leading presidential candidate who's been involved in conduct that we believe strongly and the court affirmed is an insurrection against the United States. So this is not something that arises very often. To get a court to seriously look at this and to get to this kind of conclusion is a huge lift. And it's incredibly significant that a majority of the Colorado State Supreme Court got there. So I think we're not overly bothered by the fact that it was close. It was always going to be close. I think that, if we'll see what happens. We'll see if Donald Trump really does appeal, as his team has said they're going to, and when, and if the U.S. Supreme Court takes it up. But if they do, I think there's every reason to believe that there's going to be a fair hearing in the United States Supreme Court. This is a court that has really been tough on abuses of power by Donald Trump. It has upheld oversight of Donald Trump by Congress. And it's a court that tends to look in a kind of originalist way to what is in the Constitution. And we think that ruling actually works very, very well with the argument we're making, because we think what the Constitution says is quite clear, and it's just a question of applying it.
Nonetheless, the Constitution being quite clear in your mind, there are a few avenues that need to be decided here. Of the three in the minority, each had their own reason for why Donald Trump should not be disqualified under this legal argument. This, as you point out, is an outlier so far. It is the first and only successful attempt to remove Donald Trump from the presidential ballot, the primary ballot. What's different about Colorado?
Well, I think what is different is a couple of things. First of all, Colorado has a procedure in state law that allows voters to go in and challenge a candidate who is disqualified. And that allowed this case to get into court, and for these plaintiffs, these Republican and unaffiliated voters, to make their case. That's something that hasn't happened. In no other place has there actually been a substantive trial, an evidentiary hearing, looking at the evidence that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. That happened in this case, where we have these brave Republican and unaffiliated voters. And the trial court heard from a large number of witnesses, law enforcement officers, members of Congress, experts, other government officials, planners of the January 6th rally, and reviewed thousands of pages of evidence and determined that based on that really exhaustive process and all of that evidence, it was clear that this was an insurrection and Donald Trump engaged in insurrection.
And yet, let me challenge that, because Section 3 of the 14th Amendment does not expressly require a criminal conviction. Do you see that as problematic?
I don't see that as problematic. I mean, there have been, that we know of, 8 cases in which courts have found people disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Most of them were from the 1860s. One of them was in a case we brought last year in New Mexico. Not a single one of them involved a criminal conviction or even criminal charges for insurrection. That's simply never been a part of the equation. This isn't about taking somebody's liberty away. It's not about putting somebody in prison. It is a qualification for office. And so what you need is a civil inquiry, a fair process. That's what we had here with all of those witnesses, all of that evidence, really effective advocacy on all sides. And a court gets to consider that evidence and make a determination as to whether somebody is qualified under the Constitution. Any kind of criminal proceeding is a totally separate thing with separate consequences and separate procedures. Okay.